Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome to another edition of the Slumber Party podcast. I am your co-host, Amanda and I'm here with my BFF, Liza. Hi, Liza. Welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Your hair looks really great this episode.
This is my episode for gorgeous
you're
hair.
showing up. I showed up with really great hair for like 2-3 episodes, and you just...
That's when you stop trying.
I stop immediately. To be fair, I'm in like COVID isolation hell. I don't even know what day it is. So like, I'm absolutely not bringing out the Dyson for this. Not for this. I shouldn't say for this. For like the mood
during this time.
Mostly.
Yes.
Yeah, during this time. I actually should have got it together. Anyway, today I'm super excited to introduce our guest, Miss Krista Salter. Welcome, Krista. How are you?
For having me. Hi. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited. Well, Lisa has talked so much about you to me in the past, only bad things, of course. So I know. I wish I had a little sound, but that'd be too much, I think. And she's mentioned you lots before. She's like, "Oh, Krista's just so cool. You need to have her on the podcast." And she has such a great pandemic, like pregnancy and parenting story. And I was like, we absolutely need to talk about this because we haven't. And I don't know. I think the reason why, it's kind of like why TV hasn't hit the pandemic yet. It's like no one wants to touch it. It's like too, and I also don't want to count my chickens. Like God knows, like every fucking week there's a new variant or something. So I'm not counting my chickens, but I thought it'd be really cool if we could kind of like discuss, hey, how are you doing? How did it go? How did you survive? And, you know, what are your tips if this happens again to us all? Goodness. And it can't be move. Because that's what I want to do. Just kidding.
Well, it'd be too expensive to move now anyways, really. Let's be honest. No one can afford housing anymore.
100%. 100%. Well, yeah, that's another thing too. So, Krista, you run your own business. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I am an interior designer here in Hamilton, Ontario. I've been running my own business for over 10 years now. And I work with clients like Liza, and I transform homes. So it's just me right now. My goal is, after having all my children, was to sort of take the business and then grow from there. So I'm leveling up, as everyone says these days, as I enter back into the workforce, which feels a little bit different this time around because of my workload at home with the kids, with having 3. Yeah. And then also just with the pandemic and sort of what that looks like coming back. There was a lot of loose ends when I left. And that's not usually how I like to leave for my maternity leave. So, I run my own show and I love doing it. And so I'm excited to get back. But right now I'm just sort of in that transition of like thinking about mom hat, getting hung up during the day, putting on the work hat. So I'm making that slow progression to, working again.
I actually found that this has been the kind of, this will be like the kind of the new thing that many moms and parents who maybe like in my house, I'm not the breadwinner, right? So my husband just continued to work and nothing really changed for him. Like for sure things have changed. He travels for work, but he traveled throughout the whole pandemic. The first time I get on a plane, and I haven't been on one since 2020, I'm going to have a tiny panic attack. And he's been on like 2,700 planes over the last 2 years. So his life is very similar. And I find that for many friends who have either taken extended mat leaves and are just returning to work, or had a baby and are returning to work, it's not what it was, right? Like, we have all of these at-home responsibilities. Liza, I know that you're kind of in this boat right now. Literally, the two of my closest friends, I have a friend who also stayed at home for a number of years, for 5 years, and then went back to work purposefully. And it's been very challenging. It's been very challenging to go back. So I can imagine for you, this would be a very challenging time as well.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying you can't be a parent and have a job during COVID, or a career. It seems to be very difficult. And of course, so my husband also is an entrepreneur and has his own business here in Hamilton, but now he has a staff. He's got a whole team. He's got to be there every day. And so it's easier for me to sort of take the step back, although I don't even know if that would matter, because we just would do it anyways. It always would fall back on me. And luckily, I have amazing clients who are okay with that. And of course, everyone understands. Everyone during the pandemic has been so understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still difficult because it always, even we were just talking that I'm going to go traveling to Florida finally. And when we return, I have to then take the 14 days with my son, who's 3 years old, because he has to quarantine. And at no point ever does that fall back on my husband. And that's no fault to him. I mean, I'm on maternity leave, but thank goodness I'm on maternity leave. Like I've said so many times, I am actually grateful that I'm on maternity leave right now during this whole, even for my industry, which is a whole other podcast. But, it's very difficult, the home sector right now, like design, supply chain issues. So I'm very happy to not be involved right now. I was hoping it would fizzle out and sort of figure itself out by the time I came back. But it's not. So, it has been really beneficial in some ways to be off, but then also difficult because, you're also have a new human in your family, and there's also a pandemic happening and the safety of them. And, you're constantly balancing risk versus reward sort of thing.
Right, exactly. And I was just telling my husband this morning, I'm like, it's not your fault, but our family is set up in such a way that your job always comes first, and the resentment that is finally starting to build up in me regarding that is just, it's all-time high today. Maybe not today, like it obviously it is building, and it's sort of, but today is just like another one of those things. Like, I understand he's apologizing, but I said, there's nothing you can do. This is the way that it's been set up. But I don't know.
And also sorry.
No, go
who's more flexible? Like who can go, whose boss or job or clients are more flexible than the other? And then, I don't know, for some reason it does always land on us. And maybe that's because you are shifting now into this new career and that's really important to you. But where before it wasn't maybe on the table, and your job as a mom was that. And so it was a little bit easier for him to even sink into that as well, right?
Right. No, for sure. And that was the thing, right? You had this whole plan of like, this is what my transition is going to look like. I'm going to start this new job and my children will be at school. And there's nothing that you can plan. Like even today, my son got sent home because he looked tired.
Again.
Really? Again. This is the one that always gets sent home tired. He's just a very sleepy kind of looking guy. He's my little teddy bear, and he's just so little goofy guy, and he just looks like a sleepy kid. I don't know.
I mean, these are the times he's getting sent home because he looks tired. Maybe he's not stimulated or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right? I don't know. He said the smoothie didn't agree with him. But, this is the thing, right? It's a smoothie doesn't agree, and then your entire day
is screwed. Yeah.
It's completely sideways.
Well, I'm currently I'm doing my placement. I'm doing my social work degree right now, as you do during a pandemic. And my placement is in a hospital. And due to the fact that the hospital is a place where there are lots of high risk people, there's a longer isolation period. So my whole family got COVID this week, and I haven't got COVID, which is like great. I say yet, but if I get it, so now I've been in isolation for the first 5 days with my husband. My daughter's tested positive yesterday. Here's 5 more days of isolation. And then if I test positive again, I'm waiting this 10 days. Like I can't even go to my placement. Now, thankfully, my placement supervisor is very flexible and lets me, work from home, but it's not the full experience, right? Like it's like, I don't know how people are kind of like, I think I've said this a lot, that we're all going to look back at this time and realize how kind of fucked up it was that we all pretended that everything was fine and that we should work 100% exactly the same during a pandemic. And I think this will have crazy implications. And just on parental stress alone, like what are we supposed to do with kids when school closes and whatnot? And talk to me about having a baby in the pandemic.
Talk to me about, you know what? I think that if it was my first child, it would have felt very different to myself. And also when I had Hannah, when I was pregnant with her, it was so at the end of 2020, September, I was pregnant with her. So I wasn't pregnant right at the beginning. So it was funny because when I got pregnant, I was like, well, at least now the people are allowed to come into the hospital rooms and all those things. So it had eased up, right? We had been around this virus a little bit longer. So I did feel a little bit more comfortable with the virus at that point and being pregnant. What was weird was like no one saw me during my pregnancy, really, right? Because I think by Christmas time of that year, so I would have been about 4 or 5 months pregnant, that was when we went into a lockdown on Christmas, December 23rd or something like that. Right. And I remember having to say to my family, I haven't put this pregnancy before the pandemic at all. I was still seeing clients. I was still going on about my day. Of course, we're doing all the things, all the protocols, the masking and all that sort of stuff. Were we masking inside at that point? Anyways, doesn't matter.
I think you were at my place at that time. You told me you were pregnant with a mask on. And we couldn't hug.
See, there we go. Good thing I have you to remember because you know what it's like.
She remembers everything.
I remember everything.
Don't ever screw up. Just
okay.
Little word to the wise.
Noted. Well, I do also remember having a very frank conversation with you about having 3 children, and you just gave me you have to do it. It's so wonderful. I was like, okay. Anyways, so I would say that it was difficult. The biggest difficulty was making these decisions, just like everybody in COVID. I now have to choose between my children going to my family Christmas and enjoying that time, or staying home and saying no. And so I had to prioritize the pregnancy because my family, I didn't know where everyone was prior to this. And, so I was worried about that. Then I think the next difficult part was the rollout of the vaccines. So there was so much time them saying pregnant women shouldn't be getting the vaccinations and they're new. And what is this going to look like? And then all of a sudden, fast forward to April, and it was like pregnant women are the highest, most risky group right now. So that was very difficult because all of a sudden it's like, wait, we were fine and we shouldn't get it. And now all of a sudden you're telling me I should. So there was this dichotomy of just exactly how COVID's been this entire time for all of us. 1 minute it's this way and next minute it's this way. And you don't know what to believe. And then do you want to get a vaccination? Do you not? So that was very difficult as well. Managing that and sort of having to go down the rabbit hole of information and doctors and hoping that the sources that I'm reading and watching are valuable and, legitimate,
informed.
And so I actually,
which is good for you for having that.
Well,
thought with yourself.
There was one,
in these
For
times.
any pregnant women out there, especially in Ontario, there is a handle called Pandemic Pregnancy, and it is Dr. Dr. Tally Ogler.
I've done some stuff for her account. She's wonderful.
She's wonderful. So you know it. And I have felt like that has been the game changer for me, kind of like my compass. Like I feel like we're on the same page. Like I believe things she says and her science and all that. So I did follow through with the vaccination because I was scared. I was scared for my baby. And also when it was sort of happening, my due date was coming really quickly. So in my head, I was like, well, she's pretty much cooked. So, the baby's ready to come. Like, it's not like she's a 15-week-old fetus. I was at the end of it. So it was a little bit easier for me to make that choice. I also wanted to ensure, that if I did get COVID, that I would be less sick, etc. However, when I got it, I was like a week before she was born. So I didn't get that like 2-week post. So it didn't really go through the placenta. So inevitably, I don't think she actually got those antibodies. However, through breast milk now, they're proving that they do. So aside from that, I think it's just the emotional part of not being able for everyone to really enjoy the pregnancy. And my stepmom said to me, she's like, I feel like Hannah just dropped out of the sky. I'm like, well, I'm glad you felt that way because I sure didn't. And then also,
or when people say you've been pregnant forever, and you're like, oh, I'm so glad you noticed that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I felt like everyone was just like, I didn't even see you, or you just didn't really like you get to enjoy that with people. So I think if it was my first pregnancy, that would have been a real disappointment, right? Because it's kind of special. I mean, every pregnancy is special, but because I had so much else going on my plate. I mean, so the other difficult part was also making the decision to pull my other 2 children out of school and daycare to mother them, to make sure they did not get sick before I had Hannah. So it was like 4 weeks of like fully pregnant self with a 3-year-old. No, he wasn't 3. He was 2, 2.5, and a 4.5-year-old. And it was, my mother was here. Thank goodness. She had come home from Florida after her long vacation there and throughout the winter. And she came every day and she was in our bubble, and when my son would nap, she would let me nap. And if she was not for her, I would not have survived. It was so challenging and just physically so challenging. And, I was older. I was an older pregnant person. I was about to turn 40. So that was hard. I was tired. And you know what it's like during pandemic times, lockdowns, like for the best of us, it's tiring. Never mind being fully pregnant. So that was one of the harder parts of pregnancy and the pandemic for me. So
no, I noticed you, Krista, saying like you were realizing that you weren't prioritizing your pregnancy. Yes. For you, does that also mean not prioritizing yourself, or because those are different things, right? Like protecting the baby is different than self-care for you. So were you able to get any, or do you connect those two?
I think it was more like I was focusing so much on, because I'm an entrepreneur, I was focusing so much on work and making sure that I was getting things done. And like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I need to get these projects done. I need to make money. So that's what I meant by prioritizing. At that point, it was like I had to start thinking about this other baby instead of just like going along. So for myself, I was really good at sleeping. That's what I prioritized. When the other kids would sleep, I'd fall asleep. Yeah.
Wait, what?
So more times than not, my husband would be like, what happened? I'm like, well, I put the kids down, I lied down next to them, done. The night's over. But then I'd be so disappointed because my night would be over and like I had no time to myself. But that was, so I don't know if self-care ever really came on the table, to be honest. Like I just don't, not that I can recall, aside from, maybe getting my nails done every once in a while by a friend who does it in her house, Right.
And I think that's sort of where I'm coming from. Like, throughout pregnancy, everybody dotes on the mom so much, right? And so when you don't have that ability to have your tribe around you, and I'm wondering if you notice that more with the third. I feel like I was lucky enough that with my third, she came at that time where my kids were older, they were like 6 and 8, and my husband really wanted this baby too. So it's like, I don't know, it's just we just all like, and I felt very pampered, and then I actually felt like completely abandoned after I had the baby,
Oh, no.
which tends to
Yeah.
happen
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And I felt that way for many reasons, but some of it was because I was so used to people doting on me, right? And so I feel like moms during the pandemic, they don't have the ability to really just focus on the idea
No.
of enjoying themselves throughout the pregnancy, especially busy moms like you.
Sure.
It's been
I'm so
such
happy.
Well,
Sorry, I'm
it's
so
been
happy you had that experience
Yeah.
with your, because
Sneak
that's
it in
amazing.
there.
Yeah.
well, I feel like that's been just such a refrain during this pandemic for my clients. It's like, especially for those who have kind of been pregnant on the whole continuum, like of the first, you're pregnant during the entire first year of the pandemic, and then you have a baby, and then there are these waves. And, I have clients who have just started introducing the baby to extended family members.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
for various reasons, right? Like someone is high risk in the family, or they're high risk, or, yada, yada, yada. It's not, everyone has their own story and reason why that needs to happen. But I think about the level of support for parents. And then you said something as well about just being an entrepreneur in the pandemic, because I feel that when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I'm going to take every single possible client, because I don't know what's going to happen with my business. I don't know how people are going to spend money. I don't know, if this is going to be a thing. And I literally worked my ass off until, I swear to God, August of this, like summer, August 2021. I kind of hit like a massive wall. And I have like a problem of being like someone who can do a lot of things and I can just go. But then like I don't know that I shouldn't do that until I'm dead. So I'm recovering from that. I'm recovering. It is a problem. But Liza, you are first witness. It is so much better than what it was. So much better. But I did that. And I felt like as an entrepreneur, like there's no insurance policy, right? There's no like, oh, whatever. Like I was like, now I'm starting to trust that the brand is doing well and the business is doing well, but
Right.
it
was also
can be
hard.
extremely stressful. Yeah.
Oh, so stressful. It's also hard is like, not only was there maternity. So when I went off with my son's maternity leave, so he was born in 2018. So I didn't even take a year, but full time, let's just say, when I went back to work, he was only in daycare for 3 months before the first lockdown happened. So then I had a lockdown. So I was home for then 3 months. And then we, so all the lockdowns that happened, I was basically starting and stopping my business, starting and stopping business. And that was stressful. So then to be pregnant then with Hannah, I was like, oh my goodness, like I haven't had a full year of work, a full calendar year of work in 3.5 years. So it's a bit mind blowing to think that might even actually happen. But then ironically, when I go back to work in May, my eldest daughter, who's 5, will be off for the summer. So I'm like, this is just motherhood. It just never ends. I'm like, like what? I got 6 weeks before I have a child who then needs either care from me or put into care or is out of the routine. So I find that I'm like, I think this is just life and I have to accept it. And the business continually pivots with me, which is what's so great, right? Because we are in charge of ourselves. We are in charge of our businesses, and our clients are so understanding because most of them are living through it with us as well. So that's what I find solace in. I'm like, okay, everyone, like we're humans, we're not robots. Yeah. Everyone
but you
also
are so good at what you do. So I'm like the first person knocking on your door.
You're on the list. Yeah, she's on the list.
You should take all the time you need, but like when you're ready.
I know, I'm about to start offering like babysitting services for you to jump back into.
Oh my gosh, I know people. And then what my best friend's like, so she just told me to have a hard stop. She's like, Krista, this is your last maternity leave. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to get back to it. I got to start emailing clients. She's like, just enjoy it because once this one's done, like it's really done. And I was like, you're right. Thank you for reminding me. Because I said that to myself at the beginning that I'm going to enjoy it. Right. She is a good friend. Yes. And so I really listened to that. And normally this is unlike me. Like you were saying, Amanda, I have changed. Like, I think the pandemic has changed my mentality of realizing that it's okay to slow down a little bit. Like I was always hitting the ground running, doing 5,000 different things. And I think it's been really a life lesson that it's okay to not do all those things and to have time for yourself and for your family. And, you know, to just not always have a to-do list that's like, although this is my
I've started to like even reject, like I've really hit like a different, I don't know, like I think with like this latest wave and Omicron, so we're recording this January 31st. When this sort of thing happened, I just knew a lot of people in my like friendship group in the corporate world who's like grind, like no changes in terms of like, you know, how things are going and like kids getting sent home and just how hard I worked last time through all those school closures. And we had help last time. We hired an amazing like 20-year-old babysitter who was like sent from the heavens. But we didn't have her. But also I was like, fuck this. I reject this. I don't want to work the same when my kids are home. I don't expect this of my team. I don't expect it from anyone. I don't like if we make no money in the month of January, so be it. I am not asking people to do this anymore. I refuse to be a part of this like grind culture. For what? For what? Like we're 2 years into this and I just like, it doesn't relent. Nothing changes, more stress. And I just refuse to be a part of it. Like I honestly, like, I think if anything, this has just taught me to like, what I really want to focus on is, I know this sounds like cheesy, but it's just like impact. Like, what can I do in a small way to help like give a parent permission to like it's okay to sleep, or what can I do like if I just work on that, I think the rest will come because I'm tired of this like grind. I'm tired of it.
Well, you're doing it already, right?
I think so. Well, it's been
you are making it happen. I'm telling you, you're doing it already.
well, yeah. I mean, well, thank you. I mean, that wasn't me fishing. Sorry?
I said, accept it. Yeah.
I struggle with this stuff. But I think that
she's terrible at taking compliments.
No, I mean, that's not, I guess what I'm saying is like, the benefit of this pandemic is that it has shown me what, like, you know, what matters, right? It like we moved, right? Being outside matters to me, like having access to like nature and my cardinals in the backyard that I'm obsessed with. Turns out that like is really important to me. And I just more want to focus on like building snow forts with my kids rather than like living in Toronto and grinding it out and like I don't know. It's just if it means less money or whatever, then I'm totally okay with that because I think what we have witnessed over the last 2 years, especially with moms and working, is just totally not okay. And I'm doing my social work degree and I'm actually doing a huge project on the she session. And the amount of literature that is coming out about like women and how they were impacted financially, emotionally, in caregiving positions, like this is crazy. And I don't even think we're even talking about it. Like I feel like we're all too in it still. To really actually I'm rambling. I'm sorry. But
You're
like
not. I totally agree.
It is so crazy. And just like even I was even thinking like I'm very privileged in my life. And then I think about like when we talk about women, I think about all of my friends in the corporate world who make, you know, 6 figures or whatever, 5 figures. And then like there's a whole other class system at play where low income earners in like caregiving or service roles are mostly women. They have been out of work on and off in this wave. Every time a restaurant closes, all those servers go home. And then I just can't even. I'm very curious about what this looks like in the long run for women. I mean, and for mothers. Anyway,
I'm with
so
you.
there.
But a lot of us got woken up, you know. I feel like I had a major awakening and just realizing it does real. I mean, it did put a lot of things in perspective for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I also turned 40 during the pandemic. So I think, was it you that told me, Lisa? Like, it's when you turn 40, you don't give a fuck about anything. Like, you just stop caring as much about all those little things. And it's so true. Yeah. Like, I can't believe how fast it happened. And I don't know if it was because the pandemic sort of pushed us to have to care less about things that were fringe or frivolous, because at the end of the day, our lives became so simple. Like on a Friday night now, if there's no plans, like, I mean, if there is plans, you're like, I'm sorry, I have something in the calendar.
I have
like
sleeping to do.
Yeah, like there's just, it's so interesting. And I think that, I think it's all allowed us to sort of step back and take a real hard look at our lives and what's really important. And I think spending time with family and making those memories, like, is obviously very important. But when I think about the time I was able to spend with my children, albeit difficult, there's no way I would have ever spent this amount of time with my children at a school, like at this age. Yeah. So it's kind of amazing that we have done that. Again, when we look back, it will be so wonderful. And when we reflect on that, but difficult in the moment and difficult to call the client, I got to cancel because so-and-so is home. But when, our 10 years from now, we'll look back and we'll appreciate that part of it. Because I also think the siblings and stuff have been able to have that relationship where they would normally be in schools in different classrooms and not be together. So that's 100%. Like a bonus when you have to look at the whole situation. That is a bonus, I think. And I
have to,
for sure.
Sorry.
I have to, I feel like I could talk to you for 700 years about this, Krista. Unfortunately, we have to keep this podcast to the length of a crap nap. There are two things that I'm going to finish saying. Number one, my kids only became friends in the pandemic. So that is a huge bonus. Wow. And then the other thing that I think is a huge bonus from the pandemic is that for once, we all agree that we have, like, if you have kids, you have kids. Like, there was this like unspoken rule that, like, yes, I have children. You will never hear about them, see them. I won't have sick days. I am strong. It's like, I think that's gone. And I actually love that. I love that we won't ever have to apologize for a sick kid being home, because that's crazy. I mean, I have lots of like feminist conspiracies about that too. Chris is like, what podcast is this? You didn't tell me. It's a rant of a wild woman.
Yeah,
but I wonder,
we talked about sleep.
I know. Well, that's okay. We're talking about common shared parenting experiences, and that's what matters. Krista, thank you so much for coming.
It was my pleasure.
When you're getting back, and there's no rush, where can people find you to hire you for your services? And what's your catchment area?
So I am out of Hamilton, Ontario. I pretty much do 30-kilometer radius generally. I used to do Toronto. But now with the commute, it's crazy. So typically it's Toronto, Burlington, Hamilton. I already said that. What did I just say? Hamilton, Burlington, Ancaster, Dundas, surrounding area, basically the GHA, if you would, Greater Hamilton area. The reason also being is that I don't actually have trades and that sort of thing further out, so they won't travel that far, especially with just the climate and all that sort of stuff. So at KM Salter Design on Instagram, and that's my website, KM Salter Design. As I can find all that stuff on my website. And we do full scale projects, interior projects, new builds, renovations, basements, all that sort of stuff. So.
And your husband is extremely gifted furniture maker.
Yes.
What is the name? What's the trade? What's his trade called again?
Oh, millwork. Well,
millworker. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. He's a furniture maker, and he also does millwork. Yeah, and designer. Yeah. So we work often together, as you imagine. Hamilton Homes.
We need a show.
His business. Yeah, sure. We need a show. Great.
Oh my gosh. I think your show needs to start with you guys camping. They portage. Like, he portages this place.
That's too much. We have to end immediately. Just kidding.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't portaged in a long time, and I have not with my children, so no mother expect that, because we certainly are not doing that. We did just get a trailer though, and it was amazing. It has been awesome. That was one thing we did as a family this summer, and that was amazing to get it. And I'm hoping to renovate it, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully,
that'll be on the show as well. All right, everyone. I will put Krista's website information in the show notes. As always, if you didn't get your sleep filled today, don't worry. You can find us on Instagram at Baby's Best Sleep, babysbestsleep.com/blog for all of your tips and tricks. And you can go back to this wonderful catalog that we have here of fabulous episodes about early morning snap transitions. Oh God, everything. It's been there, and there's more to come. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.